Optimization Sciences, Taylor and Francis. Till date, there was no combined algorithms for pre-processing stage of web mining. So her research focused on developing this combined algorithm addressing limitations of existing algorithms. So welcome you, ma'am, for this session of FDP. Ma'am, I request you to take over the session now.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the introduction. I hope, am I audible? I mean, the voice is clear.
Yeah, ma'am, you're audible, but a little more clarity can be there. Participants, you're able to hear Priyanka, ma'am, clear. Can you please, any one of you please respond?
Am I audible to all of you?
Voice is little low, Priyanka.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what even, yeah. Viji ma'am is saying yes, ma'am. Nityanandan
Now,
sir,
ma'am, is the voice better
Nityanandan
now?
sir, is the voice clear for you? Nityanandan sir?
Anuga, ma'am, is it better now?
It's
Yeah,
better, but
comparatively better.
Okay. So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this session. Myself, Dr. Priyanka Verma, as already told by ma'am, I'm working as a senior assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science, IS
B
Salisbury
section.
University. So, ma'am has already told that we are going to talk about web mining today. But before starting with web mining, we need to be a bit clear about what is data mining. Majority of you already know what is data mining, but it's just a brief revision that what is data mining. Before that, we need to understand what is KDD. KDD is basically knowledge discovery in databases. All of us know that we have huge amounts of data which is existing inside databases. And this data, if not mined, is obviously useless for us, right? So, what we need to do, we need to perform the mining of the data for the knowledge discovery from the huge amounts of data which is existing, right? So we can understand this entire process with an example. Let's say, for example, we have a riverbed. Now, this riverbed has stones, it has shells, it has various other artifacts. So, depending upon our goal, that is, let's say, for example, I'm a craft person, so I would be interested in might be the artifacts which are lying on the riverbed. If I am a shell person, so might be I would be interested in the shells which are lying by the riverbed. So depending upon my need, depending upon my requirements, since the data is very huge, so I cannot be focusing on the entire data, right? I hope all of you agree with that point. So what I need to do, I need to set a goal. I need to identify that from the huge amounts of data which is existing over there, what exactly is my goal, and accordingly I would collect the data. So if all of you can see this figure, the first part of KDD is data collection. So depending upon my goal, whatever things were there on the riverbed, I would not be collecting all the things. What will I do? I'll collect the things depending upon my goal. So the first step of KDD is data collection. Then the data that we get, it is very raw, it is very noisy. So this particular data, it has to be what? It has to be pre-processed. So during pre-processing, we will remove the noisy data, we will remove the useless data which we do not require. So might be possible that I was a shell collector, I collected the shells, but along with the shells, there were certain other things also which came along. So what will I do? I will remove the data which is no more required by me during which phase? During the pre-processing phase. Then I have the data transformation phase. Now, what is data transformation? Data transformation is basically converting the data to a processed form. Processed form in the sense that if I collected shells, shells might be polished, shells might be cleaned, whatever, anything which is not required is going to be removed. That means it's going to be converted to such a form on which mining can be performed, because raw data obviously we cannot perform mining. So in a way we can say that pre-processing and transformation, they are performed together, so that various data mining techniques can be performed on the data which is collected, right? So why I started with data mining was because web mining was coined after data mining only. So it was specifically for web data only. So I thought before starting with web mining, I must quickly revise what is data mining, so that all of you know when we are discussing about web mining, how the term was coined and what were the benefits of coining that particular term. After data mining, the last step is data interpretation. So obviously, once the data is collected, once the various mining techniques are performed, which can be classification, which can be clustering, which can be association, depending upon our needs, which we are going to discuss in the further slides, the output that is returned is knowledge. So ultimately, user is interested in what? User is interested in the final knowledge. User is not cared about how the data was collected, how the pre-processing was performed, how the mining was performed. His ultimate goal was already set in the beginning, and ultimately, according to the goal, what is finally extracted is the knowledge. So this entire process has to be very clear to us, because in web mining also the process remains the same, with the difference that in data mining we are working on the raw data which is existing inside the databases, whereas in web mining we are working on what? We are working on web data. So that is the difference. So we can conclude by saying that KDD is a program and an analytical approach to extract the knowledge from the huge databases. And data mining was what? Data mining was one of the steps of KDD, and it is basically the backbone of KDD. So we can say that for extracting the ultimate knowledge, if data mining is not performed, so obviously pre-processing, transformation, nothing would be of use, because ultimately we have to mine data, we have to perform any mining technique, and then only the final knowledge is going to be extracted. So this is the conclusion which is drawn, that KDD was the entire process to extract the knowledge, and data mining is the backbone of KDD, which was critical, or we can say the most important step of KDD. So the problem that we had was that we had to find out anomalies, patterns, or correlations within our large data sets, and the solution that was given to us by us is data mining. So obviously, huge amount of data is there which has a lot of anomalies. What do we need to do? We need to extract patterns. We need to find out correlations within those data sets. And for that, we perform what? We perform data mining. Moving on further, since my topic of presentation is web mining, so what is web mining? Before I begin with that, we need to understand what is World Wide Web. I'm again very sure that all of you are aware of this term, but just as a brief revision, all of you access websites, right? And how do we access the website? We type in the address as a URL inside the address bar. So let's say, for example, I have to access my university website. So until and unless I know the URL of that particular website, obviously I would not be able to access it, right? So for my university, I know the URL, it is isunit.ac.in, where AC stands for academic site, right? So once I enter the URL, the request is actually going to whom? The request is going to the server. So when we are talking about web mining, we need to understand that what exactly is happening. As a client, I am requesting for certain websites. These websites are existing where? They are existing on the server. So basically, World Wide Web is a huge book which has too many web pages. Client is not interested in all the web pages. So what does the client do? the client enters the URL of that particular website. The client should know that which website the client wants to access, and from that huge book, that particular page which is requested by the client, it is going to be extracted and it is going to be displayed to the user. So web mining does what? It is mining the data which is existing inside those web pages. So before we moved on to that, we had to understand that these web pages are stored where? They are stored inside the websites. These websites are accessed through what? They are accessed through the URL, that is the Uniform Resource Locator. And these web pages, they may contain text, they might contain images, they may contain audio data, they may contain video data. It can contain any sort of data. So what does web mining do? Web mining is mining on the web data. So this web data is existing where? It is existing on the World Wide Web. So that is only why I started with World Wide Web, so that the term is clear that when we talk about web mining, so we are doing what? We are performing data mining on the data which is stored on the World Wide Web. And what why we are doing that? Again, the purpose is exactly the same as that of data mining, that we were wanting to discover certain useful knowledge from the data which is existing on the World Wide Web. Why? Because obviously I need to know that what are the websites which are being most frequently accessed by the users, so that I can improve the content of my websites. I can personalize the content of my website. All of you make use of Amazon.com, right? Yes or no? I mean, any sort of online shopping. All of you do online shopping, yes or no? No response. Anyways, I'm sure all of you do that. So, whenever we perform online shopping, we basically work on recommendation systems, right? So, what is recommendation? That, let's say, for example, I went for shopping one particular product, so automatically the next product is displayed, which is like similar to that particular product. So, let's say, for example, I went for shopping bread, so obviously butter, cheese, jam, whatever related products are there, they are displayed in my recommendation list, right? So this recommendation which is coming to me, or the personalization which is being done for me, all these techniques or all these appropriate applications, they are being performed through what? They are performed through web mining. So what is web mining? Web mining is the application of various data mining techniques on web data. And what was data mining? Data mining was the application of various data mining techniques on huge data sets. So the difference is only in terms of data which is being mined. So web mining, we are mining the web data, whereas data mining, we were mining the huge amounts of data sets. When we talk about web mining, the kind of data which exists on the World Wide Web, it can either be content data, it can either be usage data, or it can either be structure data. So this we will discuss in our further slides, that what is content data, what is usage data, and what is structure data. So depending upon the data which is existing on the World Wide Web, accordingly we can perform content mining, or we can perform usage mining, or we can perform structure mining, right? Okay. So why this new term web mining was coined? I already said that whenever we are working with any particular website, it is very important for the website developer to know that how the users are navigating inside my website. Why? Because obviously, if I come to know that one particular website is not being accessed very frequently, so obviously it will not be I need to change the content of my website. I need to modify my website so that the number of users which are navigating my particular website can increase. So for that, which technique do I need to use? I need to make use of web mining. Why? Because I was working with web data. So we can say that web mining is very important to reveal how the users are navigating inside my website, whether they are happy with my website, whether they are not happy with my website, to improve a website's design. Why this is required? Because obviously I need to make sure that if I have created a website, my website design is good, then only my website is going to be more approachable. Users are going to be more happy about my content and it's going to be more visible, right? So for that, obviously, I need to find out that whether the users are happy with my website design or they are not happy. So to make it more visible, again, I require what? I require web mining. Then I require it for social network analysis as well. Why social network analysis? All of us are quite into social network analysis these days. We are on Facebook, we are on Twitter, we are on various other networking platforms. So it is very important that how the different entities they are connected with each other, and then only we would be able to make sure that the web search engines they are successful. Because if social network analysis is not successful, then obviously the web search engines would also not be successful. And finally, the last motivation behind web mining was to improve the landing page optimization. So usually whenever we access any particular website, we get certain pages where certain business content, let's say for example, might be a laptop purchase or something. So when I land on that particular page, if I was able to purchase the laptop, that means yes, the web page was successful. The web page was able to generate the revenue. The web page was able to generate the business. So for all these tasks, what do we need to perform? We need to perform web mining. So for the website developer, for the content developer, for the social network analysis, for the success of my website, what do I need to perform? I need to perform web mining. If web mining is not there, then obviously I would not be able to find out whether my website design was successful, whether the users are happy with my website, whether the users are able to connect to my web page, the content is okay or not okay. So for all these tasks, what do I need to perform? I need to perform web mining. So this was basically the main motivation because obviously data mining was there. So why a new term? So this new term was coined only because we were working with website, we were working with web pages, we were working with the client server model. So for that particular thing, this new term was coined, which was known as web mining. Okay. Now here comes the most important part, that what is the main difference between data mining and web mining? Because obviously data mining was there, so why web mining? So what is the major difference? So I have already said this and I'm repeating again that data mining was basically working on the patterns which were stored on the databases, or we can say huge data sets. So whenever we were wanting to extract patterns from the huge data sets, we were working on what? We were working on data mining. Whereas when we were wanting to work with the web data, which can either be content, which can either be usage, or which can either be structure. So whenever we were wanting to work with the web data, we make use of what? We make use of web mining. The techniques are exactly the same. So we will perform association, we will perform clustering, we will perform statistical analysis. The techniques will remain the same. Only thing which is going to differ is the data on which we are going to work, right? So another difference between data mining and web mining is that during data mining, data collection is not so difficult. Why? Because the data is already there inside the data sets. So basically, I don't have to work more on the data collection part. Whereas in web mining, data collection is a very difficult task. Why? Because the data has to be collected from a large number of web pages. So I need to find out that what are the web pages from which the data has to be extracted, and that is only why it proves to be what it proves to be a lengthy task. So if I am comparing data mining and web mining, during data mining the data is already collected, it is already there, whereas during web mining the data has to be collected from the websites, from the web pages, from the log files. So this can prove to be a lengthy task. Okay, I have a question. How many of you know that whenever you are accessing any particular website, my entire data as in my username, my web address, the total number of bytes that I transferred, um, what was the query that I fired on one particular website. So this entire information, it is stored inside what? It is stored inside log files, right? And these log files, trust me, they are very huge because I have already done my PhD on the log files. So I know that these log files are very huge. The size is very big. So performing mining on these log files, it's a very difficult task because it contains a lot of data, and majority of the data is something which is not required. I'm only interested in the URL that was taken by the user, the username, the IP address, and apart from that, the rest of the data which is stored inside the log files, it's not useful for me, right? So I go for pre-processing, I go for data cleaning, then only the data becomes ready for the analysis. So this is the major difference between data mining and web mining, that data mining is a bit simpler because the data is already there, whereas in web mining, the data has to be collected from log files. And collection of these log files, again, it is a very difficult task because it is storing personal data. So if I have to access the log files of Amazon, so who's going to give me those log files? Obviously, no one. So the log files are very secure because they are storing the personal data of users, and everyone does not have access to those log files. So it's only the developers, it is only the content holders who have access to those log files can only perform web mining. The next difference is in terms of the users who can perform data mining. So we have engineers, we have scientists who can perform data mining. Whereas on the other hand, apart from engineers and scientists, we have a new term that is data analyst. Because ultimately we are interested in what? We are interested in the output. So that output is the analysis which is being performed. So that is only why apart from the engineers and the scientists, we can have the analysts who can do the web mining. For data mining, we have various machine learning algorithms which are being used. Whereas for web mining, we have a concept which is known as page run. Uh, all of you make use of Google, right? So what does Google do? For displaying the search data, that means, let's say, for example, I search for which is the best university in Jaipur. So what will Google do? It will perform the search. It will search for that particular web page from the server, and depending upon the page rank, how is the page rank calculated? Page rank is calculated depending upon the total number of users who targeted that particular website. So more the number of users, the more is going to be the page rank, and more upper it is going to be in the indexing. So when I am performing the search, the page that gets displayed on the first place, like we have 1 2 3 4 1 to 10, the rankings are being displayed, and the page which is being displayed on the first place has the highest page rank. How come it has the highest page rank? Because obviously the number of users which access that particular website are more. So when we are talking about web mining, most important concept is page rank. And when we are talking about data collection, that data is collected from there. It is collected from the usage logs. So that is where the difference comes between the two techniques. For data mining, we need to know about machine learning, we need to know about the basic statistics, need to know about certain probability techniques. Whereas for web mining, we need to be aware, we need to have the application level knowledge. Why application level knowledge? Because we need to know that what is the website that we are wanting to work on, what are the web data that we are wanting to extract, what are the content that we are needing to extract the knowledge from. So the application level knowledge is very important. So whereas in data mining we were only concerned with the basic data, whereas in web mining we are working with web data which is very huge. So we need to have the basic application knowledge without which the web mining would not be successful. Next, if we talk about the data mining tools are available, which we have Becca, we have Orange. Some of you would have already heard about it. We have Carrot, then we have ALKI. Whereas on the other hand, the web mining tools are very rare and they are not easily downloadable. So we need to have proper access. We need to purchase these tools. Then only we will be able to get access to them. So we have HT Miner, we have Alter Wind, we have Web Utilization Miner. So these are the ready-made tools which are available and which will perform the web mining for you. So the algorithms are already feeded inside the tools. Only thing that we need to do is give an input and the final output is going to be generated by them. Okay. How did web mining actually evolve? We know that web mining is working with web data. So the data which is stored inside the web, it is increasing. Why it is increasing? Because nowadays everyone wants to have their own websites. So the content which is being stored on inside the websites, it is increasing. And the traditional techniques as in the statistical methods, mean, median, mode, they were not so effective to mine the data which was stored inside the web. Web is very huge, right? So obviously the traditional techniques were not so useful. So what did we require? We required a new technique which will help us to mine that data on the web. And it was Oren Etzioni who had actually coined the term web mining in 1996. So it was the first time when this particular term was being given for mining the data which was stored inside the web. And why it was required? Because obviously we needed answer to a few questions as a developer or as a owner of our website, that how many successful purchases were made. That means how successful landing page optimization is. Because if landing page optimization is successful, that means the revenue generated is good. That means good successful purchases were being made. Then we did target advertising, but on that advertising or out of that advertising, how many successful purchases were being made? That means, let's say I targeted advertisements of somewhere around 100 or let's say 500 users. So out of those 500 users, which was the successful one? How many were successful ones, or which actually moved on to purchases? So for that, we require web mining. Then it is very important for me to know the profile of my visitors. Why? Because I need to personalize the content of my website. I'm sure all of you would agree with this point that if my website is personalized according to me, I stay very happy with that particular website. Because let's say, for example, at the beginning, welcome Priyanka is getting displayed, or the products which I am usually more interested in, those products are being displayed in the beginning, or certain other personalization is being done for me. So that usually keeps me very happy. Or as a visitor, I am very satisfied that yes, this particular website is suited to me. So that personalization is being performed through what? It is performed through knowing the profile of the visitors, through knowing that who all are accessing my website, whether what is the name of the user, what is the IP address of the user, right? So this entire profile of my visitors is very important for me. Then, how can I perform the market segmentation? So, market segmentation again for e-business, for e-commerce, it is very important. So, that information again can be gained through what it can be gained through web mining. Ultimately, we can conclude that if all these questions are kept in mind, in the sense that we are able to answer these questions, so then obviously my business is going to be better, my website success is going to be better, the users are going to be more satisfied, right? So for answering all these questions, we require what? We require web mining. Now, in the beginning itself, we discussed that the data on the web can either be content data, can either be usage data, or it can either be structured data. Depending upon whether we are mining content data, whether we are mining usage data, or whether we are mining structured data, the types of mining techniques are going to vary. So if we are mining the content of my web page, obviously my website would contain text, it would contain images, it would contain audios or video files. So if I am mining the content of my web page, which can either be text, image, audio, or video, so then I call it what? I call it content mining. If I'm mining the log content as in what was the username, what was the IP address, what was the URL, what was the total number of bytes which are being transferred. So then I called it what? I called it usage mining. The name itself is suggesting usage. So what is usage? It is the statistics or it is the usage of one particular website as in when did you access that particular website? What was the date? What was the time? What was the URL? Right? And what was your username when you were accessing your particular website? So this entire data is basically called as what? It is called as the usage data. Or we even call it clickstream data. So what is clickstream? That you are clicking on that particular website and the data gets stored where? It gets stored inside the logs. So this is web usage mining. So usually we make use of the web server logs only because that is where our entire data gets stored. But apart from that, we have application server logs, we have application level logs as well. But majorly what we mine is the web server logs. And again, trust me, I've already done my search or I can say my doctorate work on this. Getting access to these log files is not very easy. So even I had to take permission to get access to these logs to perform my pre-processing on those logs. So these logs are very secured. They have high level of security, and only the registered users, as in the trusted users, can only get access to these logs. So that why it is very important to mine this data, because obviously if I have to perform website personalization, if I have to improve the content of my website, it is very important for me to know that who were the users who access my website, what is the most access time, so that let's say for example I know that majority of my users they access my website during daytime. So what can I do? I can increase the bandwidth, I can increase the load, so that the number of users, even if it increases, my website would not fail, right? So it is very important for me to study those log files to perform a load management or to perform the personalization of content. So these usage logs is basically, in fact, you can say that out of all the three techniques or the mining techniques, the usage mining is the most frequently being used because the user is actually more interested in the data which is being stored inside the logs. Then the last mining technique is the structure mining. So if in case I have to improve the structure of my website, which can either be in terms of the document structure or it can be in terms of the hyperlink structure, which can either be intra or the inter hyperlink. So in that particular situation, I perform what? I perform the structure mining. So depending upon whether I want to use or I want to perform mining on the usage log, or I want to perform mining on the content data, or I want to perform mining on the structured data, accordingly I can choose my mining technique. So I can either go for web content mining, or I can go for usage mining, or I can go for structure mining. Okay, so what are the stages of web mining? The first stage is pre-processing, which we already covered up during the data mining also. So the stages are almost the same. During pre-processing, what do we do? The data which was collected was obviously noisy. It was having a lot of users' data. So what were we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? We need to perform the pre-processing of data. So during pre-processing, what do? We do data cleaning, we do user identification, we do session identification, which I actually did in my work. So pre-processing is very important and it actually consumes 80 to 90% of your time because obviously applying a data mining technique and the analysis of results that we can do, and since majority of us are already aware of the data mining technique, so that at least is simpler for us. But the pre-processing part, it is very difficult and in fact it consumes a lot of time. So when we talk about stages, they are almost same as data mining. That first we have raw data. On raw data, we perform pre-processing, then we perform pattern discovery for the discovery of patterns, and at last we perform analysis. So the patterns which are being discovered would finally help us to answer certain questions which were being framed at the beginning, and the output that is going to be generated is the knowledge. Okay. Then we have what are the various applications of data mining and web mining. So since we are already clear with what is web mining, we need to understand why web mining was required. So first, and the most important purpose is that to customize the website content. So if we are already knowing about the user profile, so obviously depending upon the user profile, we can customize our website. And why we need to do that? Just to improve the user satisfaction with our website, the user content satisfaction, as in the user is happy with my website. So for that, what do I need to perform? I need to perform the customization of the website. Then for the target advertising, I discussed it in the previous slides as well, that what do I need to perform? I need to perform target advertisements at certain user groups. And why am I doing that? Just to improve the business of my company. So that let's say for example, I targeted at 100 of users, at least I can say that 20 users or 25 users or might be more are going to respond back. So for that, I need to identify that what are the users on whom I need to target so that the revenue of my company can actually increase. Then this point I have not yet discussed fraud management. So let's say for example, I usually shop for one particular thing only on one particular website, and now all of a sudden my shopping pattern has changed. That means my buying pattern has changed. So that can actually help me to identify that there is a fraud which is going on in my website. And this that can be done through what? That can be done through web mining. Because obviously if there is a change in buying pattern of the user, so one thing is that someone is trying to perform a fraud or someone is trying to imitate that particular entity and it is trying to access that content of that particular website. Then, when I was talking about usage mining, I specifically said that if in case the number of users request at one particular time is very high, so once I mine the log files, I will come to know that okay, the this particular time the number of users is huge. So what do I need to do? I need to increase the bandwidth. I need to increase the performance of my website so that my website does not crash. So that can only be done if I am aware that at this point of time the website is going to be more frequently accessed or the number of users for my website are going to be more at this particular point of time. Then it is again very important for the fault management also. So fault management is, let's say for example, that there is some fault which took place. When we are going to talk about log files in my further slides, sometimes stop transmission take place. So what is stop transmission? That the data was getting transferred and all of a sudden my website has stopped the transmission. So this particular information, it gets stored where? It gets stored inside the error log files. So these error log files, if they are mined, so I'll come to know that what was the root cause of my error, what was the root cause of the fault which took place due to which my website crashed, or due to which in between the transmission of my data stopped. And again, the next error is 404. That means sometimes it does happen that we are trying to access one particular web page and the error which is being returned is page not found. So that particular error can also be handled, that particular fault can also be removed if we are doing the web mining of error logs. Then for the e-learning environments, so if we want to improve the process of e-learning environments, again we can make use of web mining. So wherever that e term is going to be there, be it e-learning, be it e-business, so that particular situation, instead of making use of data mining, we have to use what? We have to use web mining. Then, if we want to increase the competitive advantage as in I have five different websites and five different websites are selling the same thing. So if I want to gain the competitive advantage, as in I want to make sure that my website should be more approachable, the users should stay more happy with my website. So what do I need to do? I need to understand my visitors. I need to study their profiles. I need to study their needs. I need to customize my content according to them. And then only I would be able to gain the competitive advantage. Like we do in our universities also. We launch new courses, we launch new techniques, we improve upon our teaching techniques. Why? Because yes, we want to gain a competitive advantage. We want that the clients should be more happy with us, more number of admissions should take place in our university. So similarly for websites also, we need to ensure that my page rank is high, the users are more satisfied with my website and should have a better competitive advantage. So for that, understanding my visitors or understanding my customers is very important. Then I need to protect my website against hacking, against frauds, or against online gambling. So for that, what do I need to do? I need to study my log files. I need to understand that whether the users who are trying to access my logs, my websites, are they registered users, are they authorized users, or whether they are frauds. So to deal with the cyber crimes, to deal with the fraudulent websites, it is very important. All of you would have seen Crime Patrol or the other such serials. So what basically is being done? That if in case, let's say, you want to find out some fraudulent message was being sent to some user, so the cybercrime team, what do? They first of all try to find out what was the system from which that particular message was being sent. That is the IP address, the first thing which is being tracked. And for web mining, what do we have? This IP address or this username is being stored inside these log files. So these log files, when they are mined, they are actually very useful because yes, I will come to know about the user purchase patterns. I will come to know about the user ID from which they are accessing. So if in case I come to know that there is a different IT which is trying to access my website, so I'm not saying that always it's going to be fraudulent, but yes, there are situations where if web mining is not being done, then identifying crimes or identifying fraud is a bit difficult task. Then we have for electronic business as well. So if in case we want to improve marketing, we want to improve the customer support, we want to increase the sales of our company. So for that, what do we need to perform? We need to perform mining. So we need to be quite aware that when we did target marketing, whether the campaigns were successful, whether the customers are happy, whether they are able to relate to our products or not. So all this only their mining. But yes, if there are benefits, there are disadvantages as well. So when we are performing web mining, it is not a very easy task. Why it is not a very easy task? I already discussed previously also the data is being stored inside log files. These log files are not easily accessible. They are not easily available. Plus the data is very huge. It is very complex. It is rapidly expanding. The number of websites are increasing. The number of users are increasing. And since the data is rapidly growing, so to identify that what data is to be mined, what are the data mining techniques, sorry, the web mining techniques which we need to use, it's actually a difficult task. So in a way, we can say that the data on the web is very complex. It is rapidly expanding. It is not from a single source. It is from various sources. It is linked. It is noisy, and it even changes constantly. That means. Let's say, for example, initially my website was displaying some information. I mined the content, and after some point of time, the developer changed the content of my website. Depending upon the user's needs, the user's requirements, the content was being changed. So the website content is not stationary, it keeps on changing. So it is constantly changing. So that is only why we need to be well versed with the various web mining techniques. We need to be well versed with our goals, and then only we will be able to perform their mining in a better way. Okay. Now, since my research basically focused on usage mining only, and I said in the beginning also that out of the three mining, majorly usage mining is most frequently being used because we are focusing more on the user buying patterns, or we are trying to find out that how frequently the users access our website so that we can personalize our content. So for that, the mining technique that we use is usage mining. So web usage mining is basically a mining technique which is used to mine the buying patterns which are being followed by the user, their personal information, and even their economy. So, if we want to find out how the users are buying the products on my website, or I want to know the personal information on the users, or I want to know their economy, so for that, the mining technique that I need to use is what? It is web usage mining. Now, these buying patterns, why do they need to be mined? They need to be mined because obviously, as a website developer, I have to ensure that my website is successful. I need to perform as a e-business user. I need to form better marketing strategies. I need to ensure that the users find what they get. Uh, whatever products they are searching for, they were able to find out those particular products. The marketing strategies, the target marketing that I was trying to do, that target marketing was successful. So for all these things, I need to perform what? I need to perform usage mining. Uh, how many of you have heard of this term Google Analytics? Has any one of you heard about this term? Okay, sir, can you please? Okay, so can you please tell me what is Google Analytics if you have already heard about it? Because I can see that one of you has raised your hand. So one of you already knows about this term Google Analytics. So if I could see any one of you, can any one of you tell me what is Google Analytics? No one? Okay, so Google Analytics is basically a term which is used to determine the total number of individual file accesses, as in how many times the user accessed my particular website, what were the domain names, what were the URLs of those particular web pages which were useful, or which websites were more frequently being accessed. So for this, the Google has formed this new term which is Google Analytics, and this Google Analytics is basically being done for what purpose? It is basically used to improve the customer satisfaction. It is used to increase my website performance. So we need to find out that how frequently my website was being accessed, what was the visit time, what were the domain names, what were the URLs which were being accessed. So for that, what do I need to use? I need to use this particular term which is Google Analytics, right? So why I used it over here in one of my slides, because this is the most frequently accessed tools these days. And just to improve the search optimization by Google, they use this Google Analytics to find out that what was the visit time, what were the file accesses, what are the domain names, what are the URLs. So for that, Google makes use of this tool. So these are the stages of web usage mining. First is that the data is collected from the log files. So I already said this, that the data is existing where? The data is existing inside the log files. So these log files, they need to be firstly taken permission, then these log files can be collected, and from these log files we need to perform pre-processing. So what is pre-processing? So during pre-processing we perform field extraction, that is the first phase. So field extraction basically means that log file is having a lot many fields. So all those fields obviously would not be required for a final analysis. So what do we need to do? We need to select the fields. We need to extract those fields which are going to be useful for us. So let's say, for example, I'm only interested in the IP address. I'm only interested in the username. I'm only interested on in the website which was being accessed by the user. So during field extraction, what will I do? If I have, let's say, 20 to 25 of fields which were existing inside the log files, I will only extract the fields which are useful for me. So only those fields which are of importance would be extracted. Then I will perform data cleaning. Now, data cleaning is a difficult task, because during data cleaning we are removing the data which is no more required by us. So we have, let's say, for example, when we are accessing one particular website. So apart from the content of our website, we get certain other data as well, which is not required for the mining to take place. So during data cleaning, what do we do? We remove the data which is no more required for the analysis. So we can remove the images, we can remove the unrequired data. So that particular task is performed during what? It is performed during the data cleaning. Then we have user identification. Now, user identification is very important, because for the website personalization, I need to know my user well. I should be aware that what is the initials, what are the initials of that particular user, so that I can personalize my content according to the user. So there are different algorithms which are there in the market for the user identification, but basically we make use of a combination of the IP address and the operating system or the username. So, in certain situations, might be possible the user wants to hide his identity, so he did not mention his username. So, how will I identify the user? I can identify the user through his IP address. I can identify the user through his browser or through his operating system. But yes, if in case the user has given the username, so then I will make use of what? I'll make use of the username only for the user identification. But it can happen that two users, they are having the same username, because if in case I'm not making use of my last name, so might be possible that Priyanka is same name is existing for two users. So then how will I differentiate the users? I'll use a combination. So that combination can be a username and IP address, username and the operating system, right? So that is how the users can be identified. Then we have session identification. So before applying the data mining techniques, we need to make sure that our sessions are identified. So how do we identify sessions? We basically break down our timing. That means, let's say, for example, I stayed on a website for 2 hours. So what will I do? I'll break down that time into multiple sessions. So I can say that I make use a timeout period of 30 minutes. So after 30 minutes, that particular session is going to time out. So once the timeout takes place, a new session file is going to get created for the same user. So username is going to be same, but what is going to differ is the session of that particular user. So during pre-processing, what do we perform? We extract the fields. So the log file that we collected, we extract the fields from that, we perform the data cleaning, we identify the users, and at last we perform the session identification. So this is what I did during my research. That is, I performed the pre-processing part. So there were different algorithms which were already existing. So obviously the changes were being made, and that is only why I called it feeders. So feeders basically it means field extraction, data cleaning, user identification, and session identification. So this entire process together, it was called as what it was called as pre-processing, and the output which I got was my session file. So this session file is the pre-processing result on which the various data mining techniques can be applied. So since it is web data, so I'll call it web mining techniques. So these web mining techniques can either be statistical analysis techniques, can either be association, can either be sequential patterns, clustering, dependency modeling, or grouping. So these are the various discovery techniques that I can perform. And depending upon the discovery techniques which are being chosen, accordingly, analysis is going to be performed. So if let's say, for example, I identify the sessions and the visitors. So I call it session and visitor analysis. If I perform clustering, so I'll call it cluster analysis. If I perform association, so I'll call it association analysis. So basically, pattern analysis technique is dependent upon the discovery technique that you chose. So depending upon the purpose of my analysis, accordingly I can choose one particular mining technique and I can discover the patterns which are actually required by the user. Now, here comes the log file. From the beginning, we have been studying that if in case we want to perform usage mining, so what do we need to have? We need to have the data. And this data is existing where? It is existing inside the log file. If all of you can see on the right hand side, this is how the log file appears to be. So we have first field that is the IP address. So the IP address from which the user access my particular website is stored. Then we have the user identifier, that is the name of the user, which is Frank in this case, the date and the time when that particular website was being accessed. Then the method which was being used for website access, it can either be get or it can either be post. So depending upon whether we made use of get method or whether we made use of post method, that entry gets saved inside our log file. Then we have the URL, that is the website address that we want access. The protocol that we use, like in this particular situation, we have made use of HTTP 1.0, that is the version of the protocol. Then we have the status code. So status code can be either in the family of 200, 300, 400, or 500. So 200 is the success status code. That means when the user requested for that particular website was found. So what status code was stored inside the log file? 200 is stored. Sometimes we have 404. So that error is being stored, or we have redirection, so we have the family of 300 status code which gets stored. So depending upon whether the request was successful or whether the request was unsuccessful, Accordingly, the status code gets stored inside the log file. And at last, we have the bytes which were being transferred. So depending upon the total time for which the user stayed online. So accordingly, the number of bytes would differ. So in this particular situation, there is a total of 2,326 bytes which were being transferred. So when the user logged in and when the user logged out, in between, obviously the sessions would change depending upon the timeout period. So from the user login time and the logout time, the total number of bytes which were being transferred were 2,326. And this information is actually very important because if the number of bytes transferred is less, or in a way we can say that the user stay time is less. So we can say that the user was not very satisfied with our website. That is only why the user left in a fraction of seconds. So when we study the data and the time of the user access, we can actually come to know whether the user is happy with our website content or whether the user is not happy. Because if the time period is big, that means yes, the user was very satisfied, the user is happy with the website content, that is only why the user has stayed for a longer period. And if in case the time period is very less, uh, in a way we can say that user was not satisfied and that is only why he left very early. This log file that I have shown in my example is a server log file, and this is basically a NCSA format. This is the most frequently used format which is being used to store the log files. But apart from that, we have other log files as well, as you can see in the diagram. We have server log files which are being used to access the data from the server. If in case we are wanting to study the proxy server data, so we can make use of the proxy server log files. If in case we are wanting to study the client browser data, so we can make use of the client side log files. Then we have different formats of storing log files. I already said that I have referred to the NCAC format, but apart from that, we have W3C format, we have the IS format as well. And these three formats can either exist in the common like format, log format, or they can exist in the extended common log file format. So common log file format has limited fields, whereas extended common log file has more fields. So if in case we are interested in knowing the browser version and the operating system as well. So this is the extra information which is being stored inside the ECLF file. So instead of getting access to the CLF file, we need to use what? We need to use the ECLF file. Like if you want to see this particular example, in this example, the browser name and the operating system is not being given. So this particular format is what? This particular format is the CLF format because it is not mentioning about the browser name and the browser version and the operating system on which the user was able to gain access to my website. Then we have different types of log files, which can either be access log files, error log files, agent log files, or it can be referrer log files depending upon our purpose. That is, if in case I want to get access to the usage data as in what was the web page that the user accessed, what was the date, what was the time. So in that particular situation, I need to refer to what? I need to refer to my access log. If I want to do fault management, so for fault management, I need to refer to what? I need to refer to the error log because error log is going to store that what was the error which was being returned. Was it 404 or was it a stop transmission? So this entire information is stored inside what? It is stored inside the error log. So depending upon our application that we are wanting to perform, either we can get access to the access log or we can get access to the error log. In case we are interested in knowing the browser version and the operating system, so in that particular situation, we need to make use of what? We need to make use of the agent logs. And if in case we want to know that the user has jumped to our website from which particular page, as in what was the referrer page which was being used by that particular user. So for that we can make use of what? We can make use of the referrer log. So there are lot many log files which are existing, but yes, depending upon the purpose whether we are wanting to perform website personalization, whether we are wanting to perform target marketing, whether we are wanting to perform fault management. Accordingly, we can choose our log files. We can decide that whether we want to access the server log files, we want to access the client log files, we want to make use of SCSS format, or we want to make use of the error log or the agent log. So we can choose that particular log file and then accordingly we can perform the mining. So it is very important that we choose the right log file, then only the analysis result is going to be good. Else it is going to be like, since the log file chosen was not right, since the field extraction was not performed properly, so then obviously the pattern analysis result is not going to be good. Okay. Now, as shown in the diagram before, there are various pattern discovery techniques which are existing. So one by one, we will discuss about all the pattern discovery techniques, because just by understanding the term web mining, our purpose is not solved. We need to choose the right technique. That is, we have to choose that whether I have to go for association, whether I have to go for classification, whether I have to go for um, any other data mining technique. So I need to understand what is my purpose, right? So we will discuss one by one all the pattern discovery techniques which are there, and ultimately what is the main purpose of using that particular pattern discovery technique. So the first technique that we have is the statistical analysis. Now, this is the most common technique which is being used, because whenever we are accessing any particular website, we have the knowledge about the visitors of our website. That is the username and everything else. So what do? We perform statistical analysis on the data which is existing. So we can calculate frequency, we can calculate mean, we can calculate median, and we perform it on what? We can perform it on page views. Page views as in what was the total number of times my particular web page was being accessed. So more the number of web page views, the more is going to be the page rank of my website. So if in case the mean, median, mode values are good, so I can say that my page rank is good, or the user is satisfied with my page content. Then you have navigational page length. Navigational page length is how the user navigated inside my particular web page. And then at last you have the viewing time. I already said that if the viewing time is good, that means the user stayed online for a longer time. That means the user was quite satisfied with my website. So viewing time, the page views, and the navigational page length, on these particular variables. How these variables are going to be extracted? We will take a log file, we will perform the field extraction. Field extraction, during field extraction, we will extract the page views, or we will extract the viewing time, that is date and time. And on that, we will apply frequency, mean, median, mode, whatever is our requirement. And accordingly, we will come to know about our website performance. If the variable value is high, that means my website is performing well. The users are quite satisfied with my website. If in case the value is not good, then yes, I can say that the website is not performing well. My site needs to be modified, because if the value is less, then obviously the user is not very satisfied with my content, right? So what will I do? Obviously, I'll not be sitting that okay, the user is not satisfied, it's all right. So what will I do? I will perform the site modification. So I'll improve the content of my website, and this ultimately will improve what? It will improve the total number of users of my website. Again, it will even help me to take better marketing decisions also, because again, when we talk about e-business, uh, it is very important that I take the right marketing decisions. So for that, what do I need to do? I need to do the statistical analysis. However, this is a very basic technique, so it's only in very rare situations where the need and requirement is not so high. We make use of the statistical analysis technique. Otherwise, we make use of the advanced data mining techniques on, such as clustering, classification only. But yes, since this was one of the techniques, so I had to discuss about this also. Then we have association. Now, what is association? Association is basically grouping those pages which are being accessed together. So all of us know what is recommendation. I asked this before also, that whenever we are doing any sort of online shopping, so what we get is a recommendation. And why this recommendation is being given to us? Obviously, uh, because the website analysis was being performed, the content was being studied, and the user, depending upon the buying behavior of the user, depending upon the past excesses, the user or the miner already knows that yes, that if a user is shopping for this particular product, might be the user is going to shop for the other product as well. So that is what is market basket analysis. And for that, what do we need to perform? We need to perform association. So association is again an important technique. Then we have sequential patterns. Now, sequential patterns is basically how frequently the pages are being accessed one after the other, as in to predict the future visit patterns. That means, let's say the user is on one particular page, and I can predict that okay, in the future, the user would move on to this particular page. How did I make out that? Because I studied my log files, the future accesses were being studied, and I came to know that अगर यूजर ने इस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम पे इस पर्टिकुलर वेब पेज को एक्सेस किया है तो माइट बी पॉसिबल दैट इन द फ्यूचर ही इज गोइंग टू एक्सेस दिस पेज एज वेल. So to predict the future visit patterns, to do the target advertisements, I should be quite aware of the sequential patterns. I should be knowing that how the user will move on from one web page to another. So this again is an important mining technique, that if in case I want to find out that how my website content has to be put by website content, because obviously I have to predict the future visit. So future visit, that means I'll portray only that content to the user that might be the user is going to visit in the future. So for that I need to perform which mining technique? I need to perform the sequential pattern mining technique. Then we have classification. Classification, I'm sure all of you have already heard about this term. So during classification, what do? We create classes, right? So that particular classes, for why do we create? Because we are assigning certain classes to the users. It can either be supervised or it can either be unsupervised. During supervised, the classes are already known, whereas in unsupervised classification, the software is doing most of the processing. So the classes and everything are being decided by the software, whereas in supervised, the classes are being given by us. So where do we use this classification technique? If I want to find out whether my candidate will respond to my mail, or if I am giving a loan to the user, whether my loan is going to be returned back on time. So for in that particular situation, I can make use of which technique? I can make use of the classification technique. So these are the two practical applications of classification technique. Because see, I have so many pattern discovery techniques. So what will I choose? And this question is usually very common in everyone's mind. Whether should I go for classification, should I go for clustering, should I go for association, or should I go for sequential patterns? So this question can only be answered if I know that in this particular situation I can use which particular technique. So if I, in a way, revise, statistical analysis was being performed if in case I need to know the site structure, that is, if in case I want to modify my website. Association was being performed for the recommendations to be given. Sequential patterns was being performed to predict the future visit patterns. And classification is being used if in case I want to find out what is the risk factor. That means if in case I want to find out whether my loan is going to be returned back on time or not. Then you have clustering. What is clustering? Clustering is basically grouping a set of items which are having these similar characteristics. Since we are not doing data mining, we are doing web mining. So then obviously I need to understand what are the kinds of clusters which are being created. So if we are creating clusters of usage statistics, so we call it usage clusters. And if we are creating clusters of web pages, so then we call it page clusters. So depending upon what was the kind of cluster which was being created, we can either call it usage cluster or we can either call it page cluster. Now, why we are doing clustering is basically because we want to group the users who are having similar browsing patterns together. So when we are wanting to segment the markets, we want to target our advertising campaigns at certain set of users only. So first step is, what do we need to do? We need to segment the market. That means we need to group the users who are going to have the similar browsing patterns together. So in that particular situation, we need to perform what? We need to perform clustering. So an example of clustering is that those clients who applied for a platinum card, they were in the 25 to 30 age group and they were having an annual income between 40,000 to 50,000. So initially the data was extracted, then the clusters were being performed, and what we found out was that those users who were lying in the age group of 25 to 30 age group and who were having an annual income between this range actually applied for the platinum card. So when we talk about web data, might be we can say that those users who access this particular website also moved on to another website. So that kind of information, if in case we are wanting to extract, so we need to perform what? We need to perform clustering. Then we have decision tree. Now, decision tree is again an important mining technique. Decision tree is being is being used in that particular situation where you want to jump to one particular conclusion, but jumping to that conclusion is going to be from a series of steps. So we can take an example that, let's say, for example, I want to purchase one particular car. So for purchasing that particular car, or if in case I want to purchase one particular phone, I initially need to start from which model I was wanting, what was the operating system that I'm looking for, what is the cost that I'm looking for, and then ultimately I will jump to a conclusion that yes, I want to purchase a phone, or whether I do not want to purchase the phone, I want to purchase a car, or whether I do not want to purchase a car. So if in case I want to take some decision, there is a flowchart of questions that I'm having in mind, and those flowchart of questions when answered would ultimately lead to the final decision. So in that particular situation, I make use of what? I make use of a decision tree. Then you have dependency modeling. Now, dependency modeling is basically being used in that particular situation. If in case I want to find out how one particular variable is going to be dependent on the other variable. That means, let us say, for example, I want to increase the sales of my company, or I want to improve the structure of my website. So in that particular situation, I need to perform which mining technique? I need to perform dependency modeling. Why dependency modeling? Because yes, I need to identify how the different variables they are related with each other, how the user is finally being what do you say, purchasing that particular product or not, how the website structure can be improved. So my output is actually dependent upon how those variables are related to each other. So in that particular situation, I need to make use of what? I need to make use of the dependency modeling. So whenever I want to predict the future, so in that particular situation, I'll make use of what? I'll make use of dependency modeling. Now, I don't know how many of you have had this question in mind, that in a way we can say that dependency modeling and sequential patterns, they are in a way related to each other, but there is a difference that in sequential patterns, we are finding out the web page access, that is how the web pages are related to each other, how the user is jumping from one web page to another. So to predict the future visit patterns, we make use of sequential patterns. Whereas in dependency modeling, we can say that we are trying to find out the dependency amongst variables. So if we want to improve the structure of our website, so in that particular situation, we can make use of what? We can make use of the dependency modeling. So I hope all the pattern discovery techniques are clear, and you would be able to decide at runtime that whether you want to go for which particular pattern discovery technique, because as already stated in this diagram, there are various pattern discovery techniques, and it's not limited to what I have already stated over here. There are other pattern discovery techniques as well, but these are the most frequently ones that I discussed, that you can go for association if in case you're wanting to go for recommendation. You can go for statistical analysis if in case you're just wanting to measure your website performance. Sequential patterns if in case you want to find out the sequence of user access. Clustering if you want to group the users together. Decision tree if in case you have a flowchart of questions in your mind and you want to take the final decision. Dependency modeling if in case you want to find out that how the different variables are related to each other. And one thing I've not stated in my presentation is grouping. Grouping is basically grouping certain users together or terms together. So if let's say for example I want to group all the Hotmail users together, so I am not creating clusters. Instead, what I'm doing is I'm just grouping the users on one particular term. So if in case I want to group all the users, Gmail users together, or the Hotmail users together, so in that particular situation, I can make use of what? I can make use of grouping. So just like pre-processing is very important, similarly choosing the right pattern discovery technique is again very important, because output is only going to be good if the right discovery technique is being chosen. So depending upon our purpose of analysis, accordingly you can go for any of these techniques which are given above. And if I move back, the pattern discovery technique is again dependent upon the pre-processing output as well. So if the pre-processing is not performed well, that means the session file which was generated was not good enough, then obviously the pattern discovery technique would also fail and the analysis results would not be so good. So it is very important that the pre-processing is being performed well, the right pattern discovery technique is being chosen, and then only we would be able to perform the right analysis. In the sense, the knowledge that is going to be extracted is going to be really useful for us. Okay, now here comes the last step of web usage mining, which is pattern analysis. Now, pattern analysis is basically used to filter out any uninteresting patterns. That means certain patterns which we found out during pattern discovery, during performing clustering or association or classification. Those particular patterns were not so useful for us. So, what will we do? We will filter out those patterns, and it can either be done through SQL or it can be used done through various visualization techniques. Now, visualization techniques can be we are giving one particular color to the trends of data. So, let's say, for example, we are focusing upon what was the time at which the user accessed those particular websites, most frequently accessed websites. So, that patterns can be shown through various visualization techniques. We can make use of graphs as well. Now, this pattern analysis basically helps e-commerce or e-business in improving the overall website. So we come back to the starting itself. The question that we had in our mind was that we had to improve the overall design of our website. We had to make sure that the users are satisfied with our website. So after performing the discovery, after performing the particular mining technique on the pre-processing result, the output that was being returned helps us to improve the overall design of our website, helps us to satisfy the users, helps us to personalize the website so that the users will stay satisfied. Then it even helps us to control the security, because when I mined the error log, I was able to find out that yes, this particular web page was not being accessed by the right user, or this particular error was being returned when I was accessing that particular website. So the intrusion that was being detected can actually help me to control the security. Then I was able to give the customized product to the users. So depending on, once I studied my customer's profile, once I studied the web data, I found out the user needs. So I was able to give them more customized products. I was able to give them more improved products. In fact, I can say that I was able to improve the user satisfaction because the customers are now being retained by my particular website. The users are actually happy by my website. And then again target the advertising campaigns which I have targeted the users at certain users, the effectiveness is obviously going to be better. So initially the goal that I had set in my mind, that why am I studying the log files? I was studying the log files because I had to personalize my website. I had to improve the overall design of my website. I had to improve the security of my website. I had to make sure that my users are being retained on my website. My website page rank is really good. So for that, what was I doing? I was studying the log files. I was applying one particular mining technique on those log files, and the output that was being returned. Once I analyzed those outputs, I was able to improve my website in a better way, and ultimately it led to the better user satisfaction. So these are the various applications of web usage mining. The first was personalization. That is, since we were able to study the website content, we were able to modify the content according to the user. So hence we were able to offer the personalized content to the user. Now, this is very important, that which particular mining technique will lead to which particular output. So, if in case I want to perform fertilization, then in that particular situation, I need to have make use of what? I need to make use of clustering, or I need to make use of sequential pattern discovery. So, depending upon if my purpose or the goal that I have in mind is that I want to personalize my contents website, so in that particular situation, I need to perform clustering or I need to perform the sequential pattern discovery. Then, if in case I want to improve my system, that means if in case I want to keep a track of web traffic so that my website does not fail, or I want to perform load balancing, or I want to perform better network transmission. So for that, I need to make use of what? I need to make use of statistical analysis. So here comes the most simple mining technique which can actually be used in which particular situation it can be used for the system improvement. So if in case my purpose that I have in mind is that I want to improve my website performance in terms of load balancing or in terms of managing the web traffic on my website, so in that particular situation, I can make use of what? I can make use of the statistical analysis. That means I can calculate the mean, median, and mode on the page views, and then I would be able to track that how my that traffic can be managed so that my website does not crash. Then you have business intelligence. So if in case you want to find out that how the customers are using my particular website, so in that particular situation, you can make use of what? You can make use of the sequential pattern discovery. So sequential pattern discovery was, if you remember, how the web pages are being accessed one after the other. That means if in case I want to predict the future visit patterns, so if a user, I can take a general example, that if a user visited a laptop web page, then might be possible that he is going to even access the other accessories which are related to laptop. So it can be your might be keyboard or an extra mouse, anything, any other accessory which was being required. So to predict the sequential pattern discovery or to predict how the future visits are going to take place, in that particular situation, I can make use of, or for the business intelligence, I can make use of what? I can make use of the sequential pattern discovery. Now, this actually it is very important because if in case I'm not clear about which pattern discovery technique is going to be used, so then obviously I will not be able to be sure about the output which is going to be returned. So it is very important that we understand this very properly, that if you want to personalize the content, then you have to perform sequential pattern discovery. If you want to perform system improvement, then we have to perform statistical analysis. If in case I want to perform the business intelligence, So then in that particular situation, I need to make use of the sequential pattern discovery. Then you have site modifications. The site modification, if we differentiate it with the personalization is we were altering the contents of a website according to the user. Site modification is we are improving the visualization of the website. So visualization of the website is going to be in both the terms. It's going to be in terms of the content of the website. It's going to be in terms of the structure of the website as well. So how the different web pages are linked to each other, how the interlinks are taking place, how the intralinks are taking place, how we are jumping from one web page to another. So if in our case our focus is on that, or our focus is how the different menu options should be created, how the linking should take place. So in that particular situation, I need to make use of what? I need to make use of the statistical analysis. So if in case the statistical analysis results are not good, that means the mean, median, mode, the outputs which are being returned, if those outputs are not good, then I can say that my content is not good. And if the content is not going to be good, the user is not going to be satisfied. If the user is not going to be satisfied, then obviously the page rank is not going to be improved. If the page rank is not going to be improving, then when the Google is doing its analysis, that means when page indexing is being done, when page ranking is being calculated, then the indexing, it's not going to be at such a good position. My web page is going to be behind in the indexing. So if in case I want to ensure that my web page is ahead in the indexing, my web page is displayed on top. So in that, for that, I need to improve the content of my website. I need to make sure that the user is staying on my website for a longer period of time. So for that, we can perform what? We can perform the statistical analysis. So here again, this term comes, that is Google Analytics. So Google Analytics is again being done by for the search engine optimization. So if in case we want to find out how our website is performing on the web, whether the users are using our website, whether the users are satisfied with our website, they are searching for our website, how many visitors actually visited our website. If you would have noticed, a few websites, they have the visitor number which gets displayed at the end. It shows that you are user number this, you are user number this. So why they actually do that? It's just to show to the user that my website is very popular. That means these many users have already accessed my website, and you are this many number of users, right? So this again makes the user a bit happy that okay, इतने users पहले इस website को access कर चुके हैं, इसका मतलब मेरी website अच्छी होगी, इसका मतलब इस पे जो website पे content है, that content is actually good, right? So how many visitors are using my particular website, which online campaigns got major traffic in the sense that there were certain web pages, there were certain campaigns which were being launched, and out of those campaigns, which were the campaigns which brought traffic to that particular site, right, to that particular site on which I was performing analysis. So once I come to know that these online campaigns actually bought traffic, so then I can launch more such online campaigns, right? So Google Analytics does not run on its own. If in case I want to study my site's performance, so I need to load it properly. I need to enter my website address. I need to find out whether my website is being supported by Google Analytics, and then only I would be able to find out that how successfully my website is performing on the web. And in a way, it is very important because ultimately our goal is to increase the total number of users on the website to make sure that the users are satisfied with our website. So that's all for my presentation. If in case anyone has any questions, so I would love to hear those questions.
Participants, please feel free to ask any questions. Can also type in the chat box if any questions are there.
Any one of you, if has any doubts, I hope I was able to explain to all of you what is web mining and why exactly web mining is required these days, because all of us are actually using the web data. So it is very important that this web data is properly mined and my website performance is actually improved so that the users stay satisfied and they don't leave the website very easily. Just like I can see all of you are leaving the meeting. So I binded up well in time. In fact, I can say 20 minutes before.
Priyanka
From
ma'am, there is a question from
yeah,
Manjusha.
yeah, ma'am, I can see that. From where do we get the data for analysis? See, it depends upon whether you are wanting to perform analysis on the log files or you're wanting to perform analysis on your website. So if in case you're wanting to perform analysis on your website, you can make use of the Google Analytics tools. You need to type in the address of your website and it will display all the analysis results related to your website. And if in case you want to make use of the log files, then yes, you will have to seek the permission, because I already said in the beginning itself that the log files are not very easily available. So just like I had to use my university log files, so first of all, I took proper permission that I want to use the university log files. So it actually contained the personal information as well. Because if I come to know that which users were accessing which particular websites, it's not very safe. So I had to take prior permission. So it actually depends upon which particular data you are looking for. So accordingly, you can go for it. I hope, ma'am, it's clear.
Any other questions? Thank you, Priyanka ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I hope I was able to do justice.
It was a very good session, ma'am. It was a very informative session, a detailed session. Hope it was very useful for the participants also. We thank you so much on behalf of the department and the college for a very insightful session on web mining, ma'am.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And if in case anyone has any further questions, they can always get back to me on this particular mail ID,
Sure,
because
ma'am. Sure. Yes, we will
um,
do that.
yeah, because this is basically the topic on which I'm doing a lot of research. That's the main thing which is there in the market.
Yeah.
So yes, if in case any further questions, you can always get back to me.
Thank you, ma'am, for that.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
We are
Yeah,
seeing many, many wonderful sessions
I'll
we are seeing in the group. Thank you, participants, for that. Just
Yeah, I'm sharing my mail ID, so you can
yeah.
always get back to me on this mail ID.
Thank you, Priyanka ma'am, for sharing the mail ID. The feedback link is shared in the chat box. Kindly fill the feedback link. And our afternoon session will start by 2 o'clock. Please log in by 1:45, 1:50.